Hi there, I'm Kylie Mowbray Allen from Hello Media.
And I'm Jenny Walk from Elephant in the Room Consulting, and you're tuning into Bite Size Business Live Podcast, the show that helps business owners get clarity and insight to grow their dream business.
Whether you're launching, ready to scale, or figuring out what's next, we discuss the nitty-gritty, the hard bits, the opportunities, and the behind the scenes, and share how we've grown our own companies and helped others do the same.
We're glad you're here. Good morning, Kylie. How are you today?
Good morning, Jenny. So excited to meet with you and chat about this topic, which I'm so passionate about.
I know. Our series the last couple of weeks, for those who've been listening in, has been all about accessibility and sustainability in business. And we've talked about cultural engagement from a First Nations perspective. We've talked about B Corp and sustainability. And today I'm so excited because we're talking about accessibility online, which I know is a really passion project for you and something that you talk to all your clients about, including me, over time in terms of how we make our business accessible online so that it's on every digital platform. We're making sure that it is, everybody can actually, engage with your business. So tell us a little bit what accessibility online means for a business.
Well, first of all, I think we need to think about the fact that what do you want someone's user experience to be on your website, or how they interact with your business? So how they interact with you on socials and all that. So that goes, of course, beyond accessibility in terms of disability, but that's really at the crux of it, is how do we want people to experience our business? So why it matters is because, firstly, 1 in 5 Australians live with a disability. Wow. The next thing is that it's actually a social responsibility and a legal requirement. So there's the Australia's Disability Discrimination Act 1992. And then the other one is, when you have an accessible business, you can tap into such a much larger customer base and really improve your brand reputation. So just acknowledging having captioning on your story, just putting captioning on your stories, for one, so that, and there's a two-pronged approach to that, is that, as we know, something like 67 or 68% of people look at their phone with the sound off. So if you've got stories where you're talking about this and that, people just swipe through if they can't put the sound on and there's no captioning. But then, of course, for anyone with any kind of hearing impairment or visual impairment, because of course they need the adaptive technologies to read it out, etc., they're just going to be swiping right through. So there's so many reasons why you would want to make your business and how you present it to the world more accessible.
And we don't often think about those elements in the fact that we know that we watch our Instagram or our reels with the sound off, but we don't think about the impact that has on our customers. We're just like, well, we're not watching it, so it doesn't really matter. Oh, but we really want them to watch it with sound on, so we assume that we hope that they do. But that's a really simple way in terms of client engagement. But that accessibility piece in terms of, whether somebody has a sound, either hearing impairment or an eyesight issue, is really important when we're trying to engage with people online. And I remember one of my clients a couple of years ago is a young man. He's 20, absolutely obsessed with, loves social media and loves YouTube, is an incredible photographer, but has a degenerative eye issue and is actually going to lose his eyesight over time. So he's really conscious of what he's trying to show, how he's going to show up and how he posts his information online, because he's trying to relate to people who are like him, right? Because he's mindful of it. And I think sometimes we forget that when it doesn't feel and look like us, we forget what their experience is going to be.
100%. And I will put my hand up and say, I was one of those people before that really never considered it, because 17 years ago, I had no experience, for example, with anyone in a wheelchair. I've had hearing loss myself since I was 11, but it's only been in the last 20 years that it just got worse and worse and worse. So, I'm a hearing aid wearer for now the last 8 or 9 years. So I'm very conscious about how people present to the world in terms of, I need captioning on with TV shows and movies and all that. And so many still don't even have that available. So, and my husband, as you know, as I've talked about on here before, broke his neck playing rugby 17 years ago. So he's a quadriplegic. So he only has the use of one wrist, no hands, and paralyzed mainly from the neck down. So I've been living alongside this world of the frustration of the lack of accessibility and the lack of inclusivity. So it's really only been the last few years that I've been really excited to learn about from an online perspective, and how can we make our businesses more accessible online. So it's there's some incredible adaptive technologies out there, but we've actually got to set our websites up so that they can be used.
And I think that's the piece, isn't it? There was a period of time where it was very much around physical accessibility. So ramps, width of doors, access into everything from hotels to shops to, making sure there's sufficient access for anybody. And I even do that now sometimes after, I'm thankfully, touch wood, don't have any serious injuries or disabilities with my physical body. But sometimes you just, I've got bad knees because I'm old, or I've trained too hard. And so I go, please let there be a lift to this third floor walk up that I need to go to, and there isn't. And it makes me really acutely aware of, wow, I'm going to a business that doesn't even consider anyone that isn't like them. And that's just going, walking up a set of stairs. And we only ever really we often only think about it on a physical term, right? But this online accessibility is becoming so important because all our businesses are run online. Even if you've got a bricks and mortar store, your business has an online element. So the importance of having this accessibility and making sure anybody who comes to our website or our socials or sees our reels can really get the best experience, I think is really critical. So how do you talk to people and how do you coach people in this space in terms of accessibility?
The first is a very, very good question, because we can look at there's really simple things to do that will change a lot for you, in a very, very quick and easy way. So initially I would say, let's do an audit. And I'm going to put in the show notes a couple of different places, because, for example, there are, I've got a couple of extensions that I use. One's called Lighthouse, so a Google extension. There's also the Wave web access extension. So there's lots of things out there that you can do that are free tools to find out how accessible you are. And I'm not perfect, that's for sure, with my online presence, but I'm always striving to make a new change every week. So for example, at the moment when I do my test, I just did one this morning before we were going live today, and it was saying that my accessibility for the mobile version of my website is 93%. I'm like, yes. 2 weeks ago, it was only at 79%. So I'm always working at how to improve it. But I think, for example, a tiny little thing that you can do straight off the bat is go and look at your website and work out, have you got a very, very pale color at the background and a very, very dark color for your fonts? That just is one simple thing, because so many people go for aesthetics over practicality things. So they'll do like a lovely lemon background with maybe an orange heading and maybe gray font for their text. And it's like, that's not okay. It can't be red. So it's not about always, and with a background in graphic design, like I'm all about the aesthetics, but really and truly, it's not fair and it's not right to make your website unable to be looked at by anyone with a vision impairment.
And that's the piece that really blew me, that really threw me a lot, is talking around how we make sure, when I first kind of got into the discussion around accessibility, that contrast online and how we even check to see whether our color palette works. Because I've got red, white, and black, and sometimes that color palette works really well and sometimes it doesn't. So we've been evolving our color palette over the last 18 months because we also recognize that the contrast, we're scoring much lower on a contrast in terms of our colors. And so we didn't think about that though, because again, we look at aesthetics. We want people to be pleasing to the eye. We're not actually, some people go, does it matter if they read the text? Well, actually it does, because some people need to read the text. They need to see that, or they need to hear that from a text reader. So understanding that, I think, is really important. So I know you're going to put some links in the chat today, or in the podcast, around where we can do that contrasting. But what are some of the common mistakes people make to have that, form over function, if you like, or beauty versus accessibility?
Well, that example of the high color contrast. So, for example, my whole website was gray. sorry, the font was gray all the way through it because I love a good charcoal, but actually it wasn't good. It needed to be black against the white for better color contrast. Being really, really conscious of your font size is an important one. So really nothing below 18 point. And even if you've got the ability to allow people to choose their font size on the website, that's really wonderful. Things like using really clear and simple language. And one of the podcasts I was listening to, there's one that I really like called Chax Chat, and it's CHAX, then chat, and it's all about accessibility. But there's one I listened to in particular called Designing with Accessibility in Mind. So often people create something and then they try and work out how can they better make it accessible. And I'm just talking like even just a PDF document that you're sending to someone. Like there's just so many, anything that is online, you need to think about how you, from the beginning, from the outset of the creation, how am I going to make this more accessible? So from your fonts to your colors, to also things like what they mentioned in the one I was listening to this morning was about the use of a hyphen. So if we talk about how you write the time, so let's say, Jenny, for our the Growth Trio workshop series. So if I write in that content that it's 5, then a space, PM, then a space, then a hyphen, then a space, and then 7 space PM. So the way that a sight reader will read that out is as single letters, and it won't make sense in the context. So we need to make sure that we're writing 5 PM and then the word 2, 7 PM. So that then it makes sense when they're reading it out rather than hyphen or dash or whatever. So there's so many things that I didn't know about that until today. So if we're actively trying to find out how can we do it better, what can we do to make this a better experience for the people that we want to be on our website? So, you know, I often talk to you about, or talk in general about Camel Case. I'm super passionate about since one of my clients told me about it a few years ago. I'd never even heard of Camel Case. And that is literally the most simple thing that you can make a change of today is making sure that every single hashtag has a capital letter at the beginning of each word.
And that one for me, I mean, even, and I'm blessed, I don't have side issues but that is a massive one for me when I look at hashtags. There's nothing worse than when someone has a 4-chain hashtags together and I'm trying to work out what it actually means, particularly when the combination could mean lots of different things. So that you introduced the term camel case, so capital letters at the front of every word for those who don't understand that, because I didn't get that till we talked. Understanding, you know, having that capital letter like elephant in the room is a capital E, I, T, R, and C, so that people know what it is and they can read it really clearly. I think is so important. Otherwise, it does just sound like gibberish.
But also then the adaptive technology can't read it out because it doesn't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So yeah, there's just so many aspects of it that's so important. But also, so here, as I mentioned, that Disability Discrimination Act from 1992, and there's other laws as well, they require businesses to provide equal access to goods and services. So inclusive practices ensure compliance, and that then reduces the risk of all kinds of legal stuff and reputation damage, etc. So we need to think about it not just from a user perspective and what it could do to our business, etc., but also from, are we doing the right thing? They put these laws in place for a reason. Are we doing the right thing by people and trying to stop some discrimination there?
And so tell me what that means in terms of creating that culture of kind of accessibility online and that inclusion so that everybody has, you know, has the same experience and the right experience when engaging with you online. What are some of the sort of 3 top tips you would say to people? You talked a little bit about making sure we're thinking about accessibility inclusion from the onset, from the outset. So whether it's the website or our PDFs or even the emails that we're sending, because it's all that aspect, isn't it? It's not just our socials, it's every online communication that we send.
Absolutely. So you could think about it in terms of every single platform too, which makes it easier if you just wanted to focus on one at a time. So I'll give you an example with Google. So you're actually prioritized. Well, their words, I'll read out their words exactly. Google's algorithm favors accessible websites, considering factors like mobile friendliness, page speed, and clear navigation. Those are easy things to fix relatively. Really. So why wouldn't you? It's hard to get to #1 on Google or page 1 on Google, especially if you're going all out with your organic content, right? And so to actually just make your website accessible is going to really boost your rankings. So that's a no-brainer to me. There's all kinds of things like the Google Search Console. They've got accessibility reports in there, so that can help you fix those up. But I've got about 5 different sites that I can share for people to try that out. The other one is Meta. So Meta's guidelines are for creating accessible content. That includes using alt text for images and closed captions for videos. So those are really, really simple things as well. And they make, like, there's so many apps out there for you to add captions to anything, but also there's the inbuilt thing when you're creating stories and you're going live that you could just put on the captions. So there's lots of things that are really easy. And Meta, again, is actually encouraging you. And when they see you doing it, they will prioritize your content as well. So the alt text is an interesting one, though, and I don't see many people doing it. But let's say we're putting up a social media post and it's a carousel, and we can swipe through as we learn 5 tips to having a better business in terms of accessibility, for example. And so what I need to do in that is I need to write my caption, put in my hashtags with camel case, but then underneath that, I need to say alt text, and I need to explain what is in the picture, because a sight reader can't do that. So if it's a photo, I've got to explain what is happening in the photo. So even if it's on a web page or if it's in a document, a Word document, if you've got a photo, underneath that, write photo, then a little colon, and then write Marge and John having a picnic beside a river. It's like their car is parked to the left.
Yep.
So we're actually explaining what it is. So a caption is super important. The alt text is super important, but they both have very different roles.
Yeah, and I love that. So they're those pieces that elevate you. I mean, and I know I've done in preparation for today, I did a bit of a check on our website, and it is not compliant. I'm going to be honest, and we're going to work on that over the next couple of weeks and months, because that's not something that we can do overnight. It's something that we need to build. Because we didn't build it with the accessibility in mind, because 7 years ago, when we first built the website, it's been evolving, right? So I think that's really critical to also be okay where you're at now and say, okay, well, where do you want to start, and how important it is for you as a business to do those things. You've just told us that if Google is going to rank you higher because of that accessibility, it is a really easy win then to say that's how important it is for you to be on the first couple of pages on Google. If it's important, you spending as much money as you are on Google ads or Facebook ads, then you need to also make sure your website's compliant. So I think that's so critical. And so recognizing what the intention is, why we're going to do it, why it's going to add value to the business, and then looking at every aspect, I think, is so critical, as you shared. And that tip around PDFs, one of those things we forget that PDFs are read online by screen readers. We have that kind of, it's form over function. It needs to look beautiful and seem beautiful. But I don't think I've ever done a capability statement where we've actually gone through and made alt text on every image in the capability statement that might have 10 or 15 pieces. And I've actually never seen one that is. But what a great place to start, by just going, okay, what are the captions on my images? What are the alt texts? And what are the hashtags? Those 3 things will make such a difference to the way so people can engage with your online content.
And I want to share one more that I think is a great place for us to end here, because it's kind of new to me. Well, it's new this year. It was actually one of my clients that put me onto this one as well. So she's involved in all kinds of areas of disability and inclusion, etc. And that was around the call to action, click here, or scan this, or whatever. That, I thought, well, my background and all that has always been, that's a really good call to action. It's clear, it's a button in a contrasting color. Click here, that's great. It says exactly what you need to do, but it's terrible in terms of accessibility. So it needs to be click here to read the PDF. Click here to view the web page. Click here to access the document, or click here to access the presentation slides, or whatever it is. So of course, that's through your emails, your newsletters, it's through everything. So I've really turned that around this year. And, that's massive job in itself, is everything through your website, everything through everything you do, going back. So I agree with you when you said, if you're recognizing right now, oh, crikey, I actually haven't even done anything and thought about accessibility. So one thing you could change today is going forward today, you do camel case. But then, like I said, once every week, I work on one thing that I can change. And so, you know, back in February, I think it was, I went, wow, we've got to change all of our call to action buttons, etc. And it takes some getting used to. It takes some learning how to do it better. And but yeah, that's a really good one going forward. If we can all think about that, click here means nothing to an adaptive piece of technology.
And I think there's some great tips you shared. So you're going to share with us a couple of links that we can either do that accessibility check, some of those tips and hints. And I know you'll have a blog up in the next day or two, if not already, about the accessibility that we can definitely access. So to learn a little bit more about what that looks like and to access that blog, where should we find you?
Just jump on to hellomedia.team, and right up there in our navigation, which again is another thing that you can really work on in your with your accessibility, is around that navigation. But in there, you'll just see one straight away that says blogs. And we have a couple of disability, well, more accessibility ones up there. So, and with really simple tips for people to use. But I'm going to put another one up, hopefully by the end of today, that talks about what you can do on YouTube, what you can do on LinkedIn, what you can do with the meta platforms, etc., as well as what you can do in your own website to definitely make it more more accessible, and how you are promoted for doing that. Or promoted is a weird word to say, isn't it? But how you are prioritized, I should say.
And that's what we're here for, right? Whether it's a digital platform, whether it's setting up your business, it's about how we make sure we can access and connect with our ideal customers and our audience as easily and as accessible for them, so that they can actually build that know, like, and trust factor. And I think critical to this, and we didn't really mention it, and I know we're going to extend our conversation around accessibility and inclusiveness to next week, where we kind of talk about what do all these things mean for you and your business, and what does that look like going forward? What does inclusivity and accessibility looks like for business? But particularly in that piece that you've just mentioned there, understanding who we are and how we access our clients, making those first steps and starting to do those things now really does help you align with your ideal customer, and means that you're going to have that like and trust factor. Because if you've got somebody who's looking at your website but they can't read it, or the screen reader or the tool they're using can't understand your website, they cannot build that know, like, and trust factor with you. So you're automatically cutting out a significant amount of the population if you're not thinking about this and addressing it in your business. So I think it's so critical. Make sure you check out those blogs on hellomedia.team with Kylie. Can't wait till our conversation next week. We're going to wrap it all together and bring it all into a sort of, what does it mean for a small business? How do we do this? And how do we actually make sure that we're building really inclusive, sustainable, and accessible businesses for our customers and clients? So really looking forward to that, Kylie, next week. Thank you so much for those insights today. They've certainly been valuable, and I know everyone's going to take one or two tips away from them. I know I certainly have already.
Right.
So thank you to everyone who's joined us today for our Bite Size Life podcast. We look forward to seeing you next week. We're going to wrap it all up and talk a little bit more about accessibility and inclusivity for businesses and how you can make it work for you. Kylie, have an amazing week. Thank you to everyone who's joined us today. Make sure you like and subscribe our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.
Bye.